hiring is not a people problem, it's a systems problem, right?
Honestly, I think out of everything we do, the self-onboarding is the game changer to it all.
You're listening to the 7-Figure Leap podcast. We're here to leverage rich relationships and smart strategies to take your business to the next level. Here's your host, Dustin Riekman.
How do you build an effective team that gives you true freedom in your business? That's the question we're going to answer today with my special guest, my good friend, client of mine, Eric Dingler. Eric and I go back, I guess at this point, a couple of years. He's been in our podcast Profits Accelerator. I've seen and admired what he's done in business, what he's done with his family, and being a digital nomad. I'm sure we're going to get into all those things today. But we're really going to focus on how he builds teams and how he helps entrepreneurs like me and like you build teams that actually give you freedom. Because I can tell you that I have a lot of limiting beliefs about this, and I've had some false starts with team building, and it's been something that I've needed a lot of help with. And that's why I said, Eric, you should come on and teach us, because he's doing an amazing job at this. So Eric, first of all, welcome, man. I'm really grateful to have you as part of the show. And I'm going to kind of give the mic to you and let you give us some of your background so we can kind of understand where you're coming from before we get into this whole team building thing we're going to talk about today.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks. Excited to be here, excited to share. And I just right now off the top, just want to say my favorite topic to talk about in any arena is leadership. I believe when, we lead better, we live better. And so this all started, oh my goodness, 30 years ago. I got hired very young, younger than I should have been hired, to run a summer camp. Honestly, I was hired to close the camp down. That's what I was brought in to do. And they thought, I was going to be the sacrificial, goat, if you will, for this camp to be closed. 15 years later, we left the camp. It was running strong and healthy. My first summer, we had 150 campers and 5 staff. And when I left, we had about 1,000 campers. We were hiring, 40 so staff, and the camp was running at 80% occupancy as a retreat center year round.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so it had a lot of fun with that. Left that, went into local church ministry. So it was a church camp, and went from there to a big mega church as a campus pastor, and found out really quickly I was in the wrong seat. I am not wired to work for somebody. And so after a little over a year, my wife and I left there and went to Virginia to plant a church. And so we planted a church. It still runs. I was actually just meeting with the new, I shouldn't say new anymore. He's been the pastor for 5 years, but we installed a new pastor 5 years ago, and I still serve that church as an overseer. And so that's a lot of fun. And now we have a digital marketing agency that we stumbled into by accident. And so through all of this, I've had to build teams, in-person teams. Now we're a fully remote team, 100% remote team. And at camp, the unique thing about camp was every summer I got to start all over, And so I got to experiment with, wow, man, that didn't work. But I got through the 8 weeks. And then the next summer, I'd gear up and interview and hire and onboard and lead and train and all of that. So it was like having these 15 laboratory experiences for building a team, for leadership. And because of that, I'm always kind of a little surprised when I talk to somebody. I forget that most people that have never hired before or are new to hiring, it's scary. There's a lot of stress with it. They're overwhelmed by it. And I've hired hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and I'm just no longer uncomfortable with it. So now I help people build and lead their teams.
I love it. Yeah, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of how that works, because I know one of your big beliefs and one of the things that's been freeing for me is, I'll butcher your own quote right in front of you, but effectively hiring is not a people problem, it's a systems problem, right? And if you have the right hiring system, it actually makes this a lot more fun, a lot more approachable, and it empowers you to actually get the right people so that you can lead them and get much better results for your business. And I want to get into that, but I think to give people better context about like why this matters so much to you, you're actually sitting right now, despite all of your early career being in the US and planning churches and summer camps, you're actually sitting in the UK. And this is one of many places you sit to do podcast interviews. So tell us a little bit about your family and this adventure that you're on right now in this phase of your life.
So for the last 4 years, my wife and I and our 4 official teenagers, our youngest turned 13 2 weeks ago. So we have 4 kids between 13 and 18. We've lived in 20 countries in the last 4 years as digital nomads.
Wow.
We have lived out of carry-on luggage, so extreme minimalist, and we've been having a great time. So we've slept in the depths of the Amazon jungle where we caught piranha and cooked them on a fire next to the Amazon River. And we've been to the top of the Eiffel Tower where we ate baguettes and my wife and I enjoyed a glass of wine. So we've just been beyond blessed to be able to do this and do it with our kids. What we've been doing the last few years, we are in a transition period to set down some roots now after 4 years. But yeah, we've had a great adventure.
What would you say in the theme of leadership? This is a loaded question. You can go a lot of ways with this, but when you think about the last 4 years and not only leading a family, but leading a family of what would have been a new teenager and all the way up until where the last one's a new teenager, like that's a very interesting time to raise children. I can speak from experience as someone with a 20-year-old, 18-year-old, and 15-year-old. What would you say is like your top leadership takeaway from that, being the dad, the husband who's led a family through 20 countries while building an online business and doing all the other things that you have interest in? Like what would be a top leadership takeaway for you?
Leadership happens everywhere. That's one of the things I love about leadership. The difference between leadership and management is a leadership principle is universal. It doesn't matter where you're leading. So I can take a leadership lesson that I've learned and I can sit down and I can wrestle with it and I can ask myself, what does this look like at work? What does this look like personally? What does this look like in my marriage? What does this look like in my parenting? And so just this morning, so consider the third option. It's one of my favorite leadership axioms. There's a third option in everything, except for how somebody gets to heaven. There's a third option in everything. We're always asking ourselves, what's the third? So consider the third option as one of our company core values. And this morning, our 13-year-old came downstairs and they're supposed to have their iPads charged in the morning because it's a central part of their homeschooling. And he came down, he was like, oh, my iPad's not charged. And I was like, why not? And he's like, oh, I didn't get it. I had it plugged in last night, but then I moved it to do something and I accidentally unplugged it. And I just was like, well, that just can't happen. I was like, so what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen again? And he's like, do I have to give all 3 options? I was like, yes. He's like, and he sat there and he had to come up with 3 options, but then it was, okay, which one of those do you think is best and why? And so it was that conversation. I had the exact same conversation with my team. We have the 1-3-1. When somebody has a problem on my team, they have to come to me with that one problem, 3 possible solutions, and the one that they think we should use, because I want to teach them how to make decisions so I can eventually say, please stop bringing this to me.
Yes.
Okay. You don't have to bring this to me anymore. And so that's the power of leadership. A solid leadership axiom works everywhere, which is why my rally cry is lead better, live better.
Oh, I like that. We've already got one good mini framework here with the 1-3-1. I've certainly used that and are familiar with it in a business context, but never used it with my kids. But I totally see the application of like, what's the problem? What are 3 things that you could do? And then what do you think would be the best solution? I'm still here to help you, advise you, let you know if I agree with that. But that obviously creates accountability, critical thinking skills. It makes them actually stop and reflect on what the real issue is and all those things. I love that. So yeah, lead better, live better. That's really good. So tell us, let's transition a little bit into your business, because I think it's instructive before we get into teaching others how to build teams, to talk about what you do in your business and tell us about your team. And I know your family is part of your team at this point, which is really cool. But yeah, just share sort of the snapshot today of Eric Dingler's business life. What do you do? Who you do it for? And then we can talk more about your team structure and how that's come to be.
Sure. So I'm an accidental CEO. This was not our intention. It was not the plan. But when we were pastoring the church at the time, and my wife came to me one day and she's like, I really feel like we should adopt. And so I said, oh, okay. Went on
Oh,
next day. I came from my walk and I said, well, I think we should shoot a bullet before a cannonball, which everybody on the team and my wife, everybody knows what that means. Well, I want to test it. And I was like, why don't we start with an exchange student? Because at the end of the school year, they go back. So we ended up hosting an exchange student for the next 3 years. But we did decide to adopt, but we wanted to do it debt free. And we needed to raise about $50,000 for an international adoption of a sibling group.
wow.
We found a report. We came across a report from the U.S. State Department that shared that teenagers from Bulgaria specifically were per capita the highest percentage of young people being trafficked.
Wow.
Because when they hit the age of 16, they age out of the system, and the system is already pretty loose. And people that adopt generally aren't looking to adopt older kids, and definitely not a sibling group. So our 2 children were labeled unadoptable, but we said, no, not on our watch. And so, but because it was international, it was going to be $50,000. And I'm like, how in the world am I going to raise $50,000 as a pastor? I knew how to build websites because way back in the day, the camp needed a website. And, between summers, I learned how to build websites and then did it. And so I started building websites for people as a way to make money for our adoption. Through that process, learned about, I could have a care plan and I could be making monthly recurring revenue. I'd never heard that before, and so I took a course and learned how to do that. And at just about that time, we were getting ready to finalize our adoption, and we had raised all the money. And we were saying, my wife and I, we decided to start a nonprofit. So we have a nonprofit, Achieve Adoption, where we come alongside families and help them financially fund their adoptions.
Wow, that's awesome.
And we were like, well, how can we keep this going with the business? And at that time, the guy that owned In Transit Studios, who I was taking some courses from, called me and offered me his business, which was this total God thing, because he was transitioning into his personal brand and just teaching web design. And he has now Web Designer Pro, and so he's just a great guy. And so we bought, this is ridiculous. For as little as we paid for it, bought doesn't sound like the right word. It doesn't feel but we bought In Transit Studios, and here I am owning this web design business. And because I like to tinker with things, we started adding digital marketing and all this stuff. And I had a coach. I got a business coach because I didn't know business. I knew ministry. And one of the first things he told me was real estate agents don't build the houses they sell.
That's great.
And that was life change. That statement changed our life. And I thought, okay, so what does that look like? And so I started a journey of figuring out, well, I know how to build and lead an in-person team. What does it look like asynchronously to do that with a remote team? Because I can't afford anybody in the United States right now.
Yeah.
And so, so we hired our first hire. He's been with us 5 years. He's now our director of web services. The guy didn't know how to do anything hardly at all with a website 5 years ago. And now he runs that entire, department of our business. And we've continued to grow the team. And and my team is Bulgaria, India, El Salvador, US. We do have somebody in the US now. So they're just all over the world. And we have a great time. We're very much a team. We have a virtual break room and we share pictures. We've celebrated 3 of our team have all had a baby in the last 2 years, not together or anything.
That's good. Good qualifier there. Well, that's awesome. So and obviously in that same time, you've been doing the major travel thing, and have you been to every country that you have an employee in yet?
No, we haven't made it to India at all yet.
Okay.
But we have brought our team together our team has grown since our last company retreat, but we are working towards the point of being able to do an annual retreat where we can bring our entire team together. We've done one. We'd like to make it annual.
That's awesome. So that sort of gives people some insight into kind of how you got into this whole world. You've learned as you go. And what I think I've heard there too is you've hired people, not necessarily because they've already figured out exactly how to do the role, but it must be for other reasons that you're hiring these individuals. And we'll get into that here in just a moment when we start talking about how I and others can hire wisely. I don't want to leave this point without talking about your family and the role in the business. I mean, you live together, you travel together, but do they have any sort of official role within the business as contractors or team members?
So our teens, well, now our son, our 13-year-old hasn't. Our 15-year-old daughter has, and she's been paid in the past with things. But my wife just joined the team. My wife has not been involved at all. And the reason is because we used to tell people when we would bring IKEA furniture home, you'd go to IKEA, buy something, you'd bring the boxes home. I could put it together or she could put it together, but we could not put it together.
I can relate to that. Yeah.
There was no way. And so we parent well together. We marry life, we're married life well together. We couldn't work together. This last January, we decided, not because that we were having, we were just tired of having this communication treadmill we felt like we were on. Like we just kept coming up to the same thing, but I mean, we were not even kind of in crisis or anything like that. But I hope you can edit this out of your podcast if you want. I don't think you'll censor it, but you might. I was like, you know what? I'm 50 years old, and every year people are wanting to take a look up my butt to see.
No, that's staying in for sure.
So why don't we have somebody look at our marriage? And so we went to marriage counseling for 3 months. And at the end of it, we learned some things that we just didn't know. It was one of the best experiences of our life. And our marriage is just at another level. And we suddenly realized we now had the skills to communicate in a way that we didn't. And for the first time, because of our kids are a little more independent with their schooling and things like that, Marissa is great at details. I'm allergic to details. And so she's been planning all of our traveling. Well, that's kind of stopping. And we had reached this inflection point of the company, and I just need to tell him. She's like, I'll do it, which honestly, it's something I've prayed for. It's a dream come true. I've always wanted it to be that. And so she is now officially the COO, Chief Organizing Officer, and she's doing a great job with that. And the team is thrilled. Peter is just excited with some of the things she's done. And she's finally talked me into something that Peter's been trying to get me to do for 5 years. I kept saying no to. Marissa talked me into it. And so he is just thrilled. But she's organized things for our kids to be able to help with the company now and stuff. So yeah, so they get to play a role.
That's great. Well, that's a cool inflection point, and it kind of builds on this whole through line that I see of sort of figuring out as you go, for one thing, being open to God's call, open to God's will, kind of just answering the next yes and trusting. And what was really cool there is like you proactively sought out marriage counseling, again, not because you're in crisis. I have a marriage ministry background. This is always one of my big pet peeves is like people don't seek help. Sometimes it's almost too late. They're in a desperation mode. It's like, why don't you proactively invest in the things you care the most about, like your relationships? So it's really cool that not only did you do that, but the fruit of that is in your business. And it's like, wow, and I actually have a business partner who's my partner. And while we thought this wasn't accessible to us and our personalities, we find that we're actually a great complement because we have the skills and the framework and the strategy here to make that actually work. And I can hear the joy in your voice that that's a culmination of something very important to you. And you mentioned that you're kind of coming out of this chapter of 4 years of traveling and starting to, establish roots and have a more permanent place to call home. So really awesome to kind of catch you in this new chapter of the business. So last thing real quick, and then we'll move into the teaching time here and help people figure out how to and get some of these things in their own business. Where do you see this going? Like if you had your crystal ball 3 years out, still the same kind of core service, or do you have something you're really passionate about moving into? Or tell us about the future of the business as you can currently see it.
Yeah, on the agency side, we are doing a whole lot more with accessibility remediation.
Okay.
And helping people make their digital content, social media, email content and their websites equally accessible to people. And we've actually seen the one cool thing is when it comes to digital accessibility is pretty much every country around the world uses the exact same set of standards.
Yeah.
The EU just came out with their new law around accessibility. And so my team doesn't have to learn anything new. It's not like GDPR or something.
Yeah.
It's just like it's this weird thing in Europe and it's something different in Virginia, something different in California. Like privacy is kind of all over the place.
Yes.
Accessibility, everybody looks at the same standards.
Okay,
So,
that's good.
yeah, so we're maybe a little bit more into that. My wife and I, we have our first 2 fractional CMO clients, and
Nice.
we're loving that. I can see her and I's role growing into the fractional CMO because we get to meet, I get to sit on a call, get excited about the client's business. I get to dream. I'm like, we could do this, we could do this. She goes, so which one of these are practical? And I'm like, well, I think these 3. And she goes, okay. And then she just goes and makes it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I just get to go brainstorm in the next thing. So that on the agency side, bringing in a general manager in a couple years, maybe in a year or 2, I really want to personally shift more of my time into teaching. I miss pastoring. I miss the teaching part.
Yeah.
The summer camp, people ask me all the time, do you miss camp? Because it was the only thing that ever came really easy to me was entertaining kids, being a goofball, entertaining kids and having, making s'mores. Like that was it. There's a lot more to it, but I loved camp ministry. It was absolutely phenomenal. And when we've left and people talk to us, like, do you miss it? And I'm like, yeah, there are parts I miss. But what I really long for the 2 weeks of staff training. I love taking this group of 18, 19, 20-year-old college students and in 2 weeks, getting them to the point where they were able to take care of 150 other people's children.
Yeah.
And then guiding them through the summer and recognizing talent and lifting stuff. So I want to get back more into the teaching leadership and helping people develop their own leadership because you're in business, your leadership capacity is the capacity of your business. You'll never grow past your leadership capacity. If you're no good at delegating, that's the cap of your business because you're the bottleneck. If you're no good at allowing other people to hire and you're no good at hiring, that becomes the capacity. If your business has been stuck for 6 months, it's a leadership issue every single time, because yes, let's say something happened in the market. You don't have the leadership skills to navigate the change that is required for that. It's always a leadership issue. And in leadership, it's always a systems issue. So that's why I want to help people with their leadership. They'll have better families, marriages, personal lives, work lives. It just changes everything.
Love it. Well, that's a perfect segue because we're going to give you the opportunity to teach and train on leadership and on team building here. I guess to give you context and so you can train me with it. As we record this, like 2 weeks ago, I had a group of people from our community, the 7-Figure Leap Mastermind. We're in Nashville, Tennessee, and we did a retreat for that group. And this theme of leadership actually came through loud and clear. Like the theme of the retreat was simplicity scales. And so as you might imagine, anyone listening to this, you think of things like simple lead generation and simple offer stacks and fulfillment and all that's true. But I had this like epiphany moment sitting there and I'm like, this is all leadership. And so it's really cool that we're recording this now. And then Eric, the little framework that came to mind for me and the type of business I run and, the types of businesses we serve, like yours, founder led, smaller, but very intentional, high impact organizations. I kind of came up with this idea of a leadership triangle. I'm sure someone else has already thought of this, but it came to me and I'm like, self leadership is sort of the base of the triangle, and then team leadership and then thought leadership. And in that team bucket, there's a lot of things in there. It's not just full-time employees. It's like all the people I interact with, my clients, my contractors, my family, my mastermind. These are all extensions of my team. And so this idea of team leadership and then hiring was also the big thing for me because I was like, I've resisted hiring a couple different positions for a while, in part due to fear, in part due to just a lack of wanting to take on that new leadership responsibility. And the process is definitely a big part of this, the system for getting this done. So just to call it out, like one key role I want to hire for right now that I need a system for, and I'll be listening attentively as you kind of walk through the framework for everyone listening, is like, we need what I'm calling a sales steward, like a salesperson, but not a closer, and not someone who's there just to take people's money and get everyone in the door. Someone who's a curator, someone who's looking to coach and serve someone, and if they're the right fit, invite them into what we do with the accelerator. And so this is very top of mind for me. I want to kind of give that context to you, Eric, that this leadership thing, this hiring thing is very real time for me. And so I want to just basically hand the mic over to you, let you put your teaching hat on and share with the audience, if they're a solopreneur or maybe they've got a couple team members, some contractors, and they're feeling a little allergic to having a team, to use one of your phrases from earlier. Like, what do we need to know? Like, how do we make this effective and even fun? And like, how do we get out of our own way when it comes to hiring and building a team?
I was taking notes there. I like your triangle. That's
good
in the sales. So it comes back to systems. And this is one of those areas you got to grow into it. You're not going to go into it. I tell people when I'm interviewing people, I'll be like, hey, listen, I'm going to talk to you today about jumping on the train with us. Now, the train is my company, and we're about a mile away from crashing. Just so you know.
That's good.
Further we've laid track, okay? But we're flying, so some of us are leaning out ahead, laying down track, and there's other people on the train still fastening down seats. Like, it's just that. And the reason I start with that is because most people I talk to feel like they can't go hire somebody until everything is ready.
Yes.
Where I interviewed 2 people today. We're hiring now these are freelancers. We have a client that needs us to do something new we've never done before. And it's very complicated, technical, and I don't want to learn it. And we've never done it. So what I do is I always hire 2 people. I hire a consultant, and then I hire the person to do the fulfillment. I hire the consultant for like 2 hours, and I'll pay them. I use Upwork. That's my favorite platform to hire from. I'll be happy to pay them $100, $150 an hour.
Yeah.
Then I hire the person to implement it for us, and they're going to be at about $12 an hour for this, and I'll probably hire them for 40 hours. I can't afford 40 hours at $100 an hour, but I can at 12. But since I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to provide management feedback and specific direction. So that's why I'll hire this consultant. So I always hire the consultant first. I hired them last week. And then one of the things I have them do is give me questions to ask to filter through the fulfillment person.
Smart.
So it's all about sitting back and going, this thing is holding me back. Let me build a system. I haven't met a problem that doesn't have a solution that's not solved with a system. Just haven't ever met one. So when it comes to hiring, you kind of want to break it down into some chunks. So the first one is your recruiting. You have to have a system for recruiting. And what you had said a little bit ago, like what we're looking for, we always look for the exact same 3 things and do it in the exact same order. For a team member, this is a little bit different for a freelancer because I'm only bringing them in for I'm just going to bring them in to do something. Okay.
Yeah, we can let's focus on the team member part, because I think we can kind of peel back from there into a freelancer. But I think the team members where I and others probably have more resistance. It's like, this feels heavy and permanent, and I've got all this responsibility for this team member. So yeah, please go ahead.
So in that, we want to hire for character first.
Okay.
Then chemistry/culture. Are they a chemistry fit, culture fit with the company and the person that's going to be leading them? And then we finally look at competency.
Okay.
Now, I'm fine somebody learning. I'm fine investing in somebody if they have high character and the chemistry is there. And so when we interview, when I was running the camp, it was about year 5, and it was the first year I had an assistant director. And after doing a couple of interviews, she came in and she's like, Eric, you have to stop doing the interviews. And I went, what do you mean? And she's like, you have to stop. You want everybody to love camp. And I went, yeah, I don't understand the problem. She goes, we need them to love doing housekeeping. Like you want them to love the place. And she's like, I need them to enjoy the work. And so we had this great conversation about, well, we need them to do both, really. But I was passionate on selling camp as I wanted people to walk out going, gosh, I hope I get the job. This would be a great place to work.
Yes.
She's going, I want them to walk out going, I can do this job. That was a huge learning time for me in figuring all of this out. So now when we hire, even when I was solo, I had friends of mine that were business owners. We could do 3 rounds of interviews. The first interview, we interview for character. And then, so like we just hired a junior web developer, and their leader was going to be our director of web services, Peter. And so I had somebody else on the team that knows Peter real well. I had this person interview our candidates for junior web developer to see if Peter and this person would get along. They were doing chemistry interview. And afterwards, she was able to say a couple candidates like, that guy and Peter are not going to get along.
Yeah.
They're going to butt heads, and then, the person we hired, she goes, they're going to get along. And they do. They get along wonderfully. And then the leader gets to do the competency interview and figure out, like, do I think this person's going to, am I going to be able to lead them well to do this? So having that system, hiring slow, taking time is all part of that. And there's a lot of things we do in there to test. We had 38 people apply for the consultant job last week when we posted it. 2 of the 38 followed our application instructions properly.
Wow.
They're the only 2 that got interviews. Within less than 30 minutes, I was able to take 38 some people. And I mean, it wasn't even that. I mean, most people I was able to decide within a few seconds.
We've kind of hit, just kind of like recap. So we've hit recruiting. So character, chemistry, competency. You got 3 interviews. There's the recommendation there focused on each of those 3 things. And obviously there's a process to filter even before they get to the interview. But that recruiting is basically the hiring part. And now we're moving into onboarding, which I think is actually where many people screw up, including me in the past. So yeah, I got my antennas up for you, Eric. Go ahead.
Okay. So we've developed a self-onboarding dashboard.
Okay.
When we hire a team member, let's say, so you hire a team member in the first week, they're going to work 40 hours. You're going to need to give them about an hour of your time. And then the second week, they're going to show up to work ready to go. Nobody's got to stop what they're doing to train the new person, which is challenging in a remote setting, more challenging when you've got time zone constraints. But we've developed a self-guided onboarding that takes people through being new, bringing them through training on vision, mission, core values. Through the checklist, through the process, there's a way for them to create their LastPass accounts, and they have to go through training. We handle passwords. They have to submit there's instructions to submit their headshot and their bio to the right person on the team so it gets on the website. And then we have a series of pre-recorded videos they watch and activities they do. But they're not just our videos. More than half of them we haven't created. We have a whole series of YouTube videos from other people that we have used and thought, well, that's really good. And we just have everybody watch it. Our project management system, Hive, like most suites, most software is a solution. Most software services and apps you use, they're going to have their onboarding training videos. We require everybody to watch those, and you have to watch them. So what happens is about a year ago, we brought on board a new project manager, and she onboarded herself the first week, and week 2, she came into a team meeting, and, because of the fact that we have some other systems in place, like everybody on the team got to know her, everybody on the team sends a welcome video to a new person. And so there's already that interaction happening. We have a virtual break room where things happen. We have all this stuff. So we're building camaraderie, we're building culture. So she shows up at the first meeting, very comfortable, ready to go. And we're talking through a challenge. And she goes, well, why don't we just use this, whatever it is, use this setting in Hive? And a couple of us kind of looked at each other around the Zoom. I went, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, that's a setting in Hive. That's our project management system. Here, they had come out with a new feature that none of us had bothered to read about.
Yeah.
But since she had just gone through this first generation, we call it first generation training. I want everybody on my team to get first generation training, because if I train you how to do something, you're going to pick up some of my wobbles.
Yeah.
Then you turn around and train somebody, they're going to pick up my wobbles and yours. And
Yep.
by the third or fourth person, it's a train wreck.
Yep.
And so we take everybody back to first generation training, and this self-guided. So what I put together is a real quick, video walking people through ours, and then a template as well as a checklist of ideas. So I'm going to make that available to you and everybody. They can go through it. Because honestly, I think out of everything we do, the self-onboarding is the game changer to it all.
Love it. Yeah, I'm excited to get access to that. And I would agree, just based on your brief description here, like that is special. Like that's unique. I think a lot of people have different ideas on sourcing and the interview process and all that. But I honestly think the huge disconnect where we either lose people who are like, I don't know why I signed up to work here, or we, lose our ability to really let them thrive is in the onboarding process. And I know I've been guilty of that, because it feels like, oh, great. And this goes all the way back to my engineering days. Oh, great. I hired this amazing person, and now I'm going to lose 2 weeks of my own productivity to make them. And then like every person I hire, I'm starting over from scratch, and I like teach them all the same things and stand over their shoulder while they set up some login or whatever. I love the self-onboarding idea. And it sounds like it is a investment basically where you do this once, and obviously maybe there's a little nuances depending on the role, but basically everyone goes through a similar self-onboarding process. So as you continue to hire, you continue to gain back a lot of time by doing this once. Is that fair?
Yeah, but you grow into it, you don't go into it. When I first hired Peter, I think I had like 4 videos.
Okay.
Once, and then several, he was the first person. So I did do some of the things with him first time, but I recorded it. Some of the videos are 5 years old, but it's still timeless.
Yeah.
So I send a video every week to my team, and it's a training video, development. And once or twice a year, I'll go, I'm going to add this to the self-onboarding dashboard. I want everybody in the future to see this. Not that the other ones aren't great. I have to be selective of people who are overwhelmed. And so I use those training videos over time to build that. But yeah, it's something you're going to build into. But if you're thinking about hiring, you can start creating some of these videos now.
Yeah.
Like, take 20 minutes tomorrow and create a video explaining the vision.
Yep.
And do it. That's it. You're done. Okay. Work. Next week, create another video that talks about your core values. If you don't have vision, mission, core values, don't hire anybody. Build those, get right first. So you've got recruiting. You got to have a system for recruiting.
Yep.
A system for onboarding. Then we have a system for delegating. And then the last system is just leadership. Now you could call all of that, but in leadership, I mean meeting with people and getting feedback. We've got a weekly report that everybody submits that asks them not about their job, but about their workload, their stress level, their morale. And I track all of that so I can see as a company, what's the morale like? What's everybody's stress level? Like, am I the only one feeling stressed, or wow, did other people feel, is everybody feeling it right now?
Yeah.
And what's really great is in those questions, we'll ask, one of the questions is like, what was the biggest challenge you had to overcome this week? And people will share things like, it was really hard. My cat died.
Yeah.
And so now we're in this personal relationship with people, and we're invested in their lives. And to me, that's a team.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. We have to do a part 2 in the future on some of these other systems, because I think there's an entire episode on recruiting, onboarding, delegation, and leadership. But I think it's good for now to talk about that's the framework here for leadership and the types of businesses that we run. And I really like that we keyed in heavily on the onboarding, self-onboarding, how what was the phrase you used as far as like starting before you're finished? Like, what was the phrase?
You mean grow into it?
Yes.
Don't into it?
Grow into it. Yes, I like that. Not go into it. I definitely fall guilty to that. There's some perfectionism where it's like, well, yeah, I should have a self-onboarding system. Well, that's going to, I got a lot of stuff I got to develop for that. So I won't hire until that's ready. Right. And then it's like, but that's never going to be done, because you have to have a first version of everything. And what I liked, an unlock for me that you shared there is two things. One is there's a lot of things you could be doing before you even hire. Like I could finish up a sales call as an example, a serve call with someone and be like, that was perfect. Like if I could do that every time, this would be so much easier. But now I have a recording of the call and I could be like, that's going in the onboarding. Do it like this. This is, or I see someone else talking to, about a sales strategy or some nuanced thing that I'm like, that's something we should totally be doing. I capture that and I include it in here. But then as you said, when you hire that next person, you can still kind of go through the manual process in a large way, but now you're recording it and you have it for the second person and the third person and the fourth person. It's all much more refined as you go. So I think that's an amazing leadership mindset here is grow into it and, go ahead and start and get things moving. But when you have a system that you're building toward and you have a strategy overlying why this is important, then you'll actually get it done and it removes a lot of the limiting beliefs, the fears, the things that and perfectionism, the things that tend to hold us back where we just don't hire anyone because not everything's fully developed and perfect. And I've gained a lot of freedom from this conversation in the sense that hiring someone is not a dedication of all of my time to onboarding them, which I think is something I had before we hit record, which now I'm feeling a lot more free from. I'm like, no, there's some very creative ways to do this that's better. And it's better for me and it's actually better for them. Right.
Yeah. I have recordings of webinars that we've done.
Yeah.
That it was a really good webinar. So we repurpose it as a replay or a lead magnet. I have every new team member watch it and we say, hey, you're going to watch this now to see how we speak to clients about what we do. Okay. Yeah. You're going to see the promises we make for or to our clients and that kind of stuff. And then the other thing I would say is, there's these really great people out there that are certified in OBM, online business management. You can hire one of them for 3 months to do all of this.
Yeah.
So there's that. And we have this thing, we call it the SOP vault. It's, all of our SOPs and checklists, and we call them quacks, which is a quack is a quality control checklist. And so we have all of this stuff. I wrote the SOP, how to make Eric a cup of coffee. And I did it to show this is how, and then I recorded a video. This is how we make SOPs. And then I just started having my team. Hey, Peter, can you watch this? Now, make an SOP on that. And then the next, okay, make an SOP on that. And now everybody on my team, depending on their role, they have to contribute an SOP at least once a month, because it's just, that's what or they have to repair one or fix one or something like that. I think we have about 120 core processes documented. I did one. Yeah. So
that's continuous improvement. That also builds redundancy because, someone has a life circumstance change, they get hit by a bus, whatever, not always the same people are going to be in the same seats. They very likely won't be. And it makes them better. This is something that we do well. We have with the team members we have, we're constantly like, let's make an SOP on that. And by we, I mean you, you make an SOP on it. And the thing is, by requiring them to make an SOP, it actually makes them better because, the best way to learn is to teach. And so if they have to sit down and formalize this and do a video on it and create a checklist, and of course we have, AI and things to make that easier, they get a lot better at the process. And now we've got this internal wisdom in the company that the next person that sits in that seat can pick it up and have a major shortcut. Yeah, I love that. So, I want to be, respectful of the time here, Eric. I know you've got an amazing resource. It ties into this team building leadership topic. So why don't you, kind of take us out here talking about if someone's listening and they're in the same position as me and you on a weekly basis, and they're like, I do need to hire, I do need to build a team. I've been resistant to it. I love what Eric's shared here. And I want to actually put this into action. Like what would be the next best step for people who are in that position?
ericdingler.com. Because I'm egotistical and prideful. The name of my website, ericdingler.com/Dustin. And in there, they can download the self-onboarding checklist. It's a whole thing just for your audience, so they can get that there. But then also there is the link to my LinkedIn. I have a podcast, the Eric Dingler Leadership Podcast. That's on there. But once they download that self-guided onboarding and connect with me a couple times a year, learn from you. I did a 90-day accelerator called Team Engine. And what we do is we go right through a 90-day process, putting together your systems to, recruit and hire, onboard, delegate, and lead a team. And every week it's a different micro system of those. And so in the 12 weeks, you build, you organize 12 systems. And at the end, you've got a system that
I love it.
is hires. Yeah.
I love seeing the replication of the model, I guess, in the wild, right? So I mentioned at the opening, Eric is part of our community. He's a Podcast Profits Accelerator alumni. He's used podcast guesting to grow his business while on the road and doing all this cool stuff with his family. And something that commonly happens, which he's doing now, which I love, is people will sort of replicate that model for their area of expertise, right? So I have the Podcast Profits Accelerator because that's the thing I like to jam on. Eric loves, obviously, team building, leadership. And so he's got the Team Engine Accelerator that grows through that same model, which is a model I deeply, deeply believe in, which is a small group coaching model. So that's amazing. So the starting point for all of these things, maybe they ultimately want to be in your accelerator, connect on LinkedIn. But the main thing I think here is go get that self-onboarding checklist so that you can get out of your own way, have this key part of this 4-step framework in place. So ericdingler.com/Dustin. And if you're listening on the go here, Eric with the C, and then Dingler is just like it sounds, Dingler, ericdingler.com/Dustin. And they can go get access to that. I'm going to do that as soon as we wrap up here, Eric, and make sure that I have this in place as I embark on this next hire. I'm committed to having a self-onboarding process in place to make this not only great for the next person, but the people that are to follow. So any final words or anything that we didn't cover that we should have popped in here?
Always be working on your leadership. There are 5 business systems every business has to have. And I put leadership at the top. So you need to be developing yourself as a leader. Your leadership capacity is the capacity of your business. So lead better to live better.
Love it. Well, Eric, you're a gift to me, a gift to the audience. ericdingler.com/Dustin. Take that next step and to go work on your leadership through this team building and self-onboarding checklist that Eric has provided. So Eric, thanks, man, for being here. I appreciate you.